Welcome, all of you, to this morning's service. Whether you're here with us in person or joining us online this morning, you are very welcome. It has been a momentous week. A new Prime Minister, followed by the death of the Queen on Thursday afternoon in Balmoral, and the simultaneous end of a 70-year reign. And I think we can certainly say that it is the end of an era. It is the end of the Elizabethan era. And whether you are a fan of the monarchy or not, I think we can probably agree that Queen Elizabeth II did symbolise service and dedication, duty, and perhaps above all, a kind of constancy in our lives. For some of us, for all of our lives, and for others of you, for a very large part of your lives. So I thought that before we began our service today, we might just take a moment in silence. And I invite you to enter this in your own way. You might like to stand if you're willing or able. You may prefer to remain seated, especially if you're at home. But let us take a minute before we begin the service as a mark of respect to Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you. I had called this service Taking Stock, and then I wondered whether I should think again and write a different service. But then listening to a lot of the coverage over the last few days, it seemed to me that actually we do find ourselves in many ways taking stock. It's a turning point of, it may be of huge significance to you, it may be of lesser significance to you, but I think of the country as a whole, it is a turning point. And it prompts us, each of us and our country and the Commonwealth, and to some extent the wider world, to just pause and consider and take stock of where we are. So I decided to keep the theme, even though I have changed the content a little. But I'd like to begin by, with really a call to worship by Susan Maginn. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here and together, at home in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this dewy morning, even as it reaches towards high noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within. And we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together. And as is our custom, as a symbol of our free religious faith, I'd like to light our chalice candle this morning. And those of you at home may like to light a candle with me. May this flame be a symbol of constancy in the midst of much change. May it remind us that at the essence of life is the eternal divine light that always shines, that always guides, and is forever a beacon of hope. It is always, always present. Let's sing our first hymn this morning, which is number 62 in our purple hymn books. You can use a hymn book if you like, they're at the back, but we also put the words on the screen. So one way or another, I hope you'll be able to join in as best you can with singing hymn number 62, Here We Have Gathered. Let us join together in a time of prayer. Divine Spirit, ground of all being. At this time, we offer our prayers of gratitude for the extraordinary life and work of Queen Elizabeth II. May she now rest in well-earned peace. We pray for the whole royal family who have lost a beloved mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. May they find strength and comfort in their grief. We ask that our new king, King Charles III, be given the courage, grace, and steadfastness he needs at this enormous time of change. And we pray that he and our new Prime Minister will accept the enormous responsibilities given to them with wisdom, clarity, honesty, and compassion for all this country's people. Let us turn to those in our own midst who may be grieving, those who are unwell, those who feel anxious and concerned. And we remember those wherever they are in the world who are affected by conflicts, by poverty, by homelessness, by migration, by flooding, and by other effects of a changing climate. And may we also give thanks for lives that have inspired and have been well lived. We thank those who would work to bring change for the better. And we are eternally grateful for the gifts of beauty, joy, kindness, wherever they blossom, which they always do. And above all, we give thanks for life and love and the miracle of being alive here, now. Amen. And I share a prayer also from Karem, Barratt. I rest in you, Spirit of life. I place in you my feet, my legs, my torso, my arms, my shoulders, my head, and allow you to support all that I am. I rest in you, Spirit of life, and give to you my worries, my fears, my doubts, my hopes, my joys, my pains, my anger, my love, and allow you to take in all that I am. And as I give all that I am, I find the place of truth, stillness, still, eternal, where you and I are one. I breathe in, deep, deeply down, up, as I stand on my toe at the edge of the universe, in oneness. And all that we are expands until forever. Blessed be. We have two quite short readings this morning. The first one is a very short story, which I will share with you now, and that will be followed by a reading which Jill will share for us. So the story, which you may have heard before, it goes like this. A horse suddenly came galloping quickly down the road. It seemed as though the man on it had somewhere very important to go. Another man who was standing alongside the road shouted out to him, "Where are you going?" And the man on the horse replied, "I don't know. Ask the horse." And Jill will read a piece by Elizabeth Gilbert from her book, Eat, Pray, Love.
If you are brave enough to leave behind everything familiar and comforting, which can be anything from your house to your bitter old resentments, and set out on a truth-seeking journey, either externally or internally, and if you are truly willing to regard everything that happens to you on that journey as a clue, and if you accept everyone you meet along the way as a teacher, and if you are prepared, most of all, to face and forgive some very difficult realities about yourself, then truth will not be withheld from you, or so I've come to believe.
Thank you, Jill. We're going to come to a time of reflection shortly, but first let us sing again. And the hymn is number 21, again from the Purple Hymn Books. Come and Find the Quiet Centre, number 21. We come to a time for quiet reflection, and I always say this is time for you to use in your own way for your own prayer or meditation, or simply to sit and be. But if you like, I invite you to use the time to take stock of your own life, just in this moment, your blessings at this time, your challenges right now, your fears, your hopes, all that limits you and that which sets you free. So however you choose to use this time, let us be still. So, taking stock. When did you last take stock? I mean by that, when did you last take a really good, long look at yourself and your life and consider all aspects of it? Not in a judgmental way, just in an open way. And maybe open yourself to possibilities for change. Perhaps it was after a bereavement or an illness. Maybe at the end of a relationship or a move of house, or after losing a job, or after becoming a grandparent, for example. Any significant life change is likely to prompt us, isn't it, into taking a bit of a look at how things are. Just as this current situation, I think, may prompt the country to look a little more even at how things are and how we might like things to be. Any major upheaval is a chance to take stock of a new and unfamiliar and perhaps unsettling situation. One which probably has thrown up all sorts of stuff from the past, maybe. Old fears that suddenly resurface, perhaps. Forgotten hopes unexpectedly awakened, maybe. Taking stock is an opportunity to consider thoughtfully where and how we are right now, and to allow new possibilities and directions to emerge. It is the silver lining, perhaps you could say, in every cloud. But what about the rest of the time, the ordinary times, if you like, if there are such things? The story about the man on the horse amuses me, I think, because I can see myself in it. This image of a man racing along on his horse, full pelt, apparently with great purpose and direction. And yet when asked, where are you going? The answer comes, I don't know. Ask the horse. And I wonder whether you ever feel you're simply being swept along by the current without much idea why or where you're going. Because it's very easy, isn't it, to get caught up, not just in busyness, but also just in doing stuff because it's what we do, it's what we've always done, or because we think things are expected of us, or because everyone else is doing it, or maybe everyone else isn't doing it, and that's another reason to do it, or because it's just a habit we've got into without even noticing. And the calendar rolls round and round, doesn't it? More and more quickly in my experience. And sometimes I feel I can't keep up with it. There are times when I'm not even sure the horse knows where it's going. But it is part of a mature spiritual life to take stock, to pause, and not just in a crisis, but regularly, as part of our way of life, our way of being. To consider with honesty and clarity, and maybe a certain amount of bravery, to ask the difficult questions of ourselves. Where am I now? How am I now? What am I being called to do now? And to value the pause itself, the act of taking stock for its own sake, as much, if not more, than what action may or may not result from it. For it is in the pause, isn't it, that clarity so often arises, and from which the way forward sometimes miraculously appears obvious. Not always, but sometimes. And we know from examples and teachings of our prophets from different religions, different traditions, that it is when we pause, when we stop to reflect, that we're most likely to receive moments of insight and what you might call enlightenment. It's in the stillness, in the silence, that we're most likely to get that experience of seeing clearly, as if for the first time. And maybe noticing something that then seems completely obvious, but we just simply hadn't noticed before while running along on the horse. Of course, the Buddha famously, finally understood, saw, experienced the truth of existence while sitting quietly under the Bodhi tree. Jesus saw what was happening and about to happen in the Garden of Gethsemane and took the time to say to his disciples, sit here while I go and pray. The Prophet Muhammad was reportedly meditating in a cave on a mountain when he was visited by an angel and found himself beginning to speak the words of God that appeared to him out of the silence. And these are stories of momentous divine connection and revelation, of course. But they didn't come from nowhere. They came from lifetimes spent pausing, stopping, taking stock, practicing, being still and quiet, and allowing the way forward and the insights to arise. It meant the practice of opening minds and hearts to the spirit, to the universe, to God, and following the call, whatever that was at the time. And this regular pausing, this regular stock taking is part of slowing our lives down, bringing ourselves back time and time again to truthfulness, to honesty, to a perspective. It's about breathing a little more deeply, shutting out the clamour and the noise and the demands for a little while, and trusting ourselves and whatever it is we believe that is beyond and bigger than we are, that the way forward will emerge. And this is basically what spiritual practices are all about. And there are so many that one could choose from. And in a Unitarian way, you do get to choose a practice that works for you. But one that comes to mind for me is the Ignatian spiritual practice of the daily examen, which is a practice at the end of each day. And it invites us to take time in quiet, in stillness, just to reflect on what have been what they call moments of consolation and desolation. You might call them moments of joy and sadness, or you might call them moments of connection and disconnection. But the idea of contemplating what it is in our day that has brought us closer to that intuition, that sense of quietness and stillness and aliveness, the feeling of being at home in ourselves, and what in our day has actually left us feeling fragmented, maybe alone, as though we don't belong. And just looking and noticing. It's not to make judgments that we shouldn't do something or we should do something. The practice is to notice. And when we notice, remarkable things can happen. Noticing is often enough. Once we've seen something, we can't really unsee it. And in many ways, it works its own magic. We do something similar in heart and soul gatherings that some of you take part in. We scan the day that we've had. We think of the different feelings and emotions we've experienced in the day, just without judgment, just taking stock of what has been and where we are now, giving ourselves time to notice. I was going to show you I am going to show it to you, but I was going to try and display this for you, but I found that in fact it was beyond me. My technical skills are not bad in some ways, but sometimes the simplest of things can completely throw us, me particularly. It's a very simple thing, and you would have seen things like this before. It's just a wheel of life divided into different kind of categories. And the categories on this particular one are health and wellness, significant others, spirituality, contribution, interests, and something they've called here financial fitness. Could all do with some of that, I think. There are many versions of such a wheel, and you might like to make your own, just to take stock of where you are in your own life. What are the main characters and aspects of your own life? And you probably find, there's this idea that they're all meant to be in balance, and somehow if they're not in balance, we're doing something wrong. They're never in balance, are they? Nobody's life is ever in balance. Things come and go, and we're flourishing in one area and we're struggling in another area. And that's just how it is. That's how life is. But the practice of just taking a little time to consider, what's working there for me? What's difficult there? What might change, possibly? What do I just need to sit with and accept for the time being? It's quite a grounding thing to do if you don't already do it. Taking stock is really about having compassion for ourselves and allowing ourselves, opening ourselves to connection with the divine as we understand it and coming home to the person that we are. It allows us to get off the horse for a little while. Let the horse go its own way, and just develop some perspective that gives us just that a little bit of distance, because there's a lot of stress in life. There's a lot of stress in the world. We know that. Just taking time to get a little bit of distance and perspective can make a huge amount of difference. I think it's an essential part of any spiritual journey. And as Elizabeth Gilbert put it, if you're prepared, most of all, to face and forgive some very difficult realities about yourself and your life, then truth will not be withheld from you. Also, I've come to believe, she says. And I think I believe that too. And I wish it for us all that we may take time for ourselves, to spend time in quietness, in contemplation, giving ourselves space to be. And I wish that for our country too, that we might take stock, take time, step back just a little, breathe, and just see what might emerge that perhaps might offer better ways forward for us all. May it be so. Our final hymn was one of my favourites, I think. It's We Are Travellers on a Journey, number 186. And we're all on this journey. It's called life, and it has its ups and downs, as we know. It has its different stages and its different realities along the way. We do what we can. We do the best we can. And that's really what it's about. So let's sing We Are Travellers on a Journey, number 186. We are travellers on a journey, which brought us from the sun, when primal stars exploded, and earth in all its fun. But now as human dwellers, upon earth dwell Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by giving. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. May you go forth today in peace. Amen.